Salutations, one and all. I was recently listening to some various interviews from commonsenseatheism.org or .com. Um, can't recall if it's com or org, but at any rate, one of these interviews was with a psychologist who had been, I guess, in a very religious area of the country, and married to a very religious woman. But he himself was an atheist, and he wrote this book called The God Virus. And in the interview, he's talking about his book, where he's using an analogy of a viral infection uh, that the um, spread and the force of religious ideas kind of mimic that of a virus. And various things that he said in that interview kind of got me thinking. Apparently, when children are uh, when children are when people are children, when we're still young, our immune system isn't as strong as it is when we are a healthy adult. And he was talking about this for a literal virus, but then he was kind of cautioning against sending your kids to Sunday school because uh, or recommending that you bring your kids to various religious meetings, so they'll build up an inoculation. But the interesting thing that kind of occurred to me as I was thinking about this, uh, it seems very fortunate that a child's immune system would be uh, not so weak that they would die from every little germ, but not quite as strong as it is in adults, so that they can get these infections. And a lot of times, kids will wipe their nose and not wash their hands and play in the sandbox and skin their knees and all kinds of things like this. So one of the things he said was people that are rich and they spoil their children with money and they shelter them from various bumps and bruises that poorer children get, and clean them, bathe them a lot, or what have you. Uh, I can't remember what there was some disease that children years ago were getting a lot if their parents were rich. I think it might have been polio. Because they weren't exposed to enough germs to build up an immunity to the disease polio. So uh, the fact that children naturally tend to put their mouth right on the fountain when they're drinking out the fountain and playing in the sandbox, scraping their knees and so on, added to the fact that their immune system is weaker, they can get these infections and build up a strong immunity to something more serious down the road. An example he gives is with shingles. A chicken pox, he said, when children get chicken pox, and then after a few days the itching and scratching and the chicken pox themselves go away, that virus is still inside the body for the rest of one's life. And in adults, it can develop into shingles. Well, why I find this talk of literal viruses in the immune system of children and building up the antibodies, I find that an interesting thing to think about because the ways that the way that an adult stays healthy, in part, is apparently because he got a little bit sick when he was younger, he or she was a child, and built up these antibodies. So the immune system in human beings, and I believe it's similar in animals as well, but it seems like a very convenient thing, almost as though it were intentionally designed. Um, but so if we want to use this, excuse me, as a um, specific instance of intentional design, um, it's there, we want to say, because God made it that way to protect us, to keep us from getting sick and getting really sick and dying. Um, and it's called the immune system. We normally think of systems as being, having certain parts working together as a means to an end. And in this case, the end will be our health. So it kind of seems like the immune system in human beings was designed by a God, and therefore God exists, if that is the case. Now, what you might be thinking at this point is that we have an evolutionary explanation for the immune system, and there is perhaps in some article or other in the scientific literature which gives the step-by-step process of that. Well, we can't um, rule out design by invoking evolution because the designer, if there is one, could have used evolution to accomplish his task. And when we think of evolution, uh, the natural selection tends to favor uh, fitness. It tends to favor survivability. The value that it places on organisms that it will perpetuate is that it's fit to survive in its environment. But a blind, uh, perhaps not random, but a blind process uh, of evolution, if we assume, along with evolution, if we assume atheism, there's no mind, there's no guiding hand behind it. So how could a blind natural process value or prefer or favor certain characteristics in the biological world over others? You need to have a mind to favor something. You, you, if you have something that is valued, that presupposes a valuer. So it's better to say, if we want to accept the evolutionary um, paradigm, that it is a tool being used because the tool itself can't value, can't prefer certain things, in this case survivability, fitness, over other things. So it seems that since the process itself is unintelligent, is unintentional, is blind, that there has to be an intentional mind behind it, which is valuing these things, these traits which tend to make certain uh, developments in animals uh, to make these animals more fit to survive in the environment. So I think that far from disproving an intelligent, intentional creator or designer, uh, the idea of things having evolved to have an immunity to bacteria and viruses and things like that, I think it actually points to a divine designer instead of proving that there isn't one, that one is not necessary, because again, we can't explain why evolution would value certain things, survivability traits, fitness traits, if it is not being guided by somebody who has these values, these intentions, as he's using evolution as a tool to design the various things that we find in the world around us. So that really wasn't what he was getting at. The psychologist, he was just using a literal virus as a metaphor for the sociological forces that go along with uh, various religious views. When somebody believes in God, it's like they are infected with the virus, according to the metaphor that he was using. So I don't think I really agree with that. If we have if we include the connotations of getting infected with the virus as a bad thing, if we believe in God and He really does exist, that would be a good thing. But that's not what I'm saying here. All I'm saying here is that we have one example among many of a personal design, a personal design inference in the immune system. There's other places we can look to find such design, perhaps the bacterial flagellum, but the human immune system does seem to be set up with a certain timing, so it's not as strong at first. It builds up like a muscle um, so that it can handle the bigger problems that come down the road with life-threatening diseases. All right, so I was kind of rambling because I'm going unscripted. But yeah, check out the Common Sense Atheism. A lot of interesting things there. Luke Prog is the guy who runs it, who runs the blog. I think it's commonsenseatheism.blogspot.com. So I may have to include the blogspot in there. All right, thanks for watching. Shalom.